Welcome everybody. We are working through Core Action 1 PD this morning. We started this work during our new school retreat over the summer where we're engaging our students in a lesson where we're standards-based, reading, writing, listening, speaking around text that's on or above our grade level. We were engaging in a quick write just to start off. Would someone like to share what they wrote for their quick write for describing a typical whole group reading lesson in your room? What do you do to prepare for that? A brave soul? Mr. Furtado?
I read the book, of course I know, because I've done that before, and then I'll look in the Ready Gen, I'll see what kind of questions they have. I'll hand out books to the kids. I'll tell them what question I want them to really focus on, writing on the board. I'll read the chapter that we're supposed to read. They can follow along, or they can just listen. I give them the opportunity to follow along. The more I say, they can just listen and want to follow along. So that's I'm reading it and I'm emphasizing the part that they have to look for in the writing. And then I finish that chapter, I go back to the question, I put where they can find that in the book, and they put evidence in the writing. They take out the journals, then they do the writing piece where that they answer the question.
Woo! You get 3 gold stars. So I heard that you're prepping by reading the text ahead of time, which is awesome. We've talked a lot about that this year. And then connecting the learning throughout the lesson to a specific goal, and then carrying that learning with that text into writing. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. For today's learning, we're going to know and look at what a whole group reading lesson looks like with collaborative conversation, and really focusing on the questions and as they spiral. So thinking about that Marzano taxonomy. Understand some of the key questions we ask ourselves when designing that learning experience. I would love to make the connection back to our Elementary Learning Network site where we have that document for lesson planning questioning. They're already there, or we can download that document and design it to meet the needs of our scholars. Determine if a lesson matches the rigor of the standard. Key criteria for rigor. The majority of the lessons centered on complex grade level text. So what that means is we are going to be looking at an exemplar whole group reading lesson this morning. So I'm speeding through this beginning part because it is about a 15-minute lesson, and I do want us to stop and start during that lesson so we can kind of talk about what the teacher's doing as she engages her class. The questions are sequenced in a way to lead the students deeper into the text based on the grade level standard. We will be looking at a 3rd grade teacher who is not using Ready Gen, but is using a piece of text that is at or above the rigor of 3rd grade. Every student is given the opportunity to engage in the work of the lesson and engage in collaborative discussions. Students take the opportunity to engage in the work and persevere in the struggle to master the grade level content. Please take note of how the teacher does not call on a child, and when they struggle, call on another child. The teacher is not doing that in this lesson. So when you see a child start to struggle a little bit, I really want us to watch closely and think about how she handles that during this lesson. So we're going to take a look at Chris Hayes' classroom.
All right, so boys and girls, yesterday we read The Garden of Abdul Ghazi. Today we are going to reread it again. I'll read it to you, and this time I'm going to stop and ask you some questions. I want you to think about the answers, where you can find them in the text. You're going to look at your partner, whisper the answer to your partner, then raise your hand when you and your partner are ready to answer the question. Are we ready to go? 6 times Miss Hester's dog Fritz had bitten dear cousin Eunice. So when Miss Hester received an invitation to visit Eunice, she was not surprised to read, P.S. Please leave your dog home. Today we are reading The Garden of Abdul Ghazazi, written by Chris Van Osberg. Yesterday, the kids read the story independently. I give them very little background knowledge, very little discussion or vocabulary. I just let them experience the text cold. Before you turn the page, I want you to think and talk with your partner. How can you tell that Alan is taking his pet sitting job seriously? Yeah, but he doesn't want him to destroy the house. Alexander, give me one example of how he takes it seriously.
He was not letting him do the things that he liked to do when.
Can you tell me an example of what kind of things he liked to do that he wasn't letting him do?
He loved to chew on the chairs and shake the stuffing, and he was doing that, but he didn't let him.
One other question on this page. Why do you think
If you will flip over your paper and take a look at the other side, I went ahead and made us a little graphic organizer with our 3rd grade standards. They're very similar to everyone's grade level standards 1 through 10. As we listen to Chris go through her lesson, I would like for you to take a peek at those standards and just put a yes if you hear her addressing one of those reading standards next to it. If you happen to hear her use a questioning technique or a collaborative technique that fits the standard when they're engaging in the text, put a yes. And then next to that is just a note-taking area for you to kind of capture your thinking as Chris moves through her lesson. Now, at this beginning clip, she was introducing or reintroducing the text to the scholars there, but she asks the class a question and calls on, I think his name is Alexander. And he struggles a little bit. How did she deal with that when she was engaging the class, when he wasn't quite able to answer the question the first time? Notice her teaching moves?
I believe she was scaffolding him, giving him a little bit more, but not giving him the answer, allowing him to process a little bit more time to think through it.
And was he able to do that?
A little bit better.
And he was able to go back into the text a little bit too, so that was pretty neat to see. Do you want to add anything?
So thinking about the specific question she had, he kept saying things all the time. And so what she did, she says, can you give me some examples of those things? And he immediately went back into the text. And so thinking about ways in which he can direct the students, like with what he said, not giving them the answer, but pushing them in the direction that we need them to go so that they can obtain that answer and then share out. And then also thinking about what were the structures that she had in place for that whole group discussion. So take a minute just to kind of reflect on that. When she had them read and then she had them discuss, there was like automatic things that they did. They knew to look at the text, they knew to turn and talk to a partner, and when they were finished, they raised their hand. And you'll notice in the video that this is in December of the year, so she's really gone through over and over what these routines are, and even though this is in December, she still reviews what are these routines that we're going to do today when we're having this collaborative discussion. And because she's set those structures in place and really followed those routines, this is an automatic
mentioned that Alan hid his hat. Talk with your partner. Why do you think Alan hid his hat?
Because Charles loved to chew on it.
Wendy, what do you think?
Because probably he wanted to eat his hat because he liked chewing on it.
It does say that. He likes to chew hats. It's one of his favorite things to chew. But why would the author specifically mention the hat?
When the duck flies against his hat,
Mason, why do you think that he mentions the hat right away?
he has to, later in the story they have the duck grabs his hat and flies away with it.
Very good. That's something called foreshadowing. Can everyone say that? Foreshadowing. That's when the author kind of gives us a little hint of something that's going to happen later. All right, let's go ahead and turn the page.
So notice here her teaching move of helping the scholars in the class discover the structure of the text. So third graders might not automatically understand that the author's craft being used in this section is foreshadowing. So she's drawing their attention to that structure. I know that's important because in our Common Core standards, our fifth graders are being asked to identify text structures in multiple texts and then compare them. So as we're scaffolding up from kindergarten to fifth grade, it's important for, as we're reading those anchor texts with our scholars, to be building their knowledge on text structure. And she just made a little move there in her instruction to help her scholars understand that rigorous text in a deeper way.
And one of the things we think about when vocabulary, we traditionally teach vocabulary front-loading, and something like this is very difficult to teach students without an example. So I like how she pulled the example from the text. So she's not only teaching reading strategies as she's going through, but she's reading that text through a writer's lens. And a lot of times, we can point those things out to our students so that they can start to see an example of and how the author uses that structure and that piece of craft in the writing so that they can then exemplify that in their own writing. So really giving those authentic examples as they're reading the text.
I read it to them. They partner read, they listen to the story on CD, and then shadowing. Can everyone say that? Foreshadowing. That's when the author kind of gives us a little hint of something that's going to happen later. All right, let's go ahead and turn the page. This was day 2 of a 4-day lesson. To support the kids who may have difficulty accessing that text, I do many things to make sure they have a deep understanding before they're expected to write any sort of response. They first read the story on their own, then I read it to them. They partner read, they listen to the story on CD, and then they have many opportunities to answer text-dependent questions with partners, as well as listen to a whole group discussion of those answers. Alan nervously climbed the grate.
Part of our balanced literacy framework is differentiated instruction. We know that the anchor text that we are delivering in our classrooms every day is rigorous. It's very, very difficult. So we have to put in place scaffolds so that our scholars can access the text in a deeper way and come to understand the topics that we're talking about, those connected texts, in a deeper way. What were some of the ways that Chris talked through differentiating the text? If you'll turn and talk to your table group, talk to each other about the different ways that she allows her scholars to experience the text.
I'm wondering if that's one different way of reading it per day. Because she said it was a 4-day lesson. So does that mean all of her books are 4-day lessons? And then
YouTube for each chapter. And so I was thinking just as they were for that, I was like, oh, you know, I read here, they read, and then to break up the text, you know, okay, this one's gonna read this page, this one's gonna be reading that page. And then I was like, oh, well, I can kind of incorporate what you do into videos.
Alright, turn back this way.
As they're reading, they're following along.
What were some of the ways that she highlighted, that she differentiates this text?
Well, first of all, before they even get it, or before she reads it, she has them read it with no background knowledge whatsoever, so they have a little understanding of what the story is about. And then she goes into it deeper as she's reading it with them.
And what does that mean for your scholars then? Because we know these texts are really, really complex for them. So what might the teacher need to do ahead of time so that those students know what to do with texts that they may not be able to read them?
Maybe obviously pre-read it and pull out very difficult words and go over specific words that would be more for students to understand.
That's traditionally what we do. So what did she say though that she did in this? She does it as they come to it. She does vocabulary as they come to it. As they come to it. So if we know students may not be able to read those words as they go through, what are some strategies we can give them so that they can access at least parts of that text throughout the story?
You have to teach them ahead of time how to use context clues and the pictures and things like that, but that's, I mean, that's all beforehand. She has to go through all that so that they do know how to use the words around it to figure out what the word means in the picture.
Thinking about what we traditionally do when we preview a text, teaching students how to independently go through that process. How do I look at the picture? What do I look at the captions? Do I look at any of the beginning sentences and the paragraphs as I go through? What are some other ways that I can glean information throughout this piece of text? Because I am reading it full for the first time and thinking about what we do as adults. Naturally, when we get to it, we haven't seen before something that's new. What's innate in us that we can give explicitly to the students, kind of help them be able to go through that for that first time.
Stairs convinced Fritz had come this way and had been captured. Why is he convinced that Fritz had come this way?
He thought it was there because the first dog Prince, they led to there.
Would anybody like to add to Katie's answer? Emma.
He thought he was trapped in there because Abdul Ghazali doesn't really like dogs because they think of us brown.
So Emma says Abdul Ghazazi doesn't really like dogs. Have we read that part yet?
No.
But what clue in the story tells you that he doesn't like dogs? Jacob.
Because on the sign it says absolutely no dogs.
Yeah, good job.
Okay.
Think about
She does something really cool here. She sets the class up to make an inference. We know that they've not read this piece of text as a class yet. This is the first time they're reading it out loud with their teacher. But they did have time to go through the text. What did the teacher do to help her class make an inference at this point in the lesson? What kind of questioning techniques did she use? Did you catch that?
She asked something that wasn't specifically said in the story. She asked something that was in the picture. So she figured they had to put the picture in there, but it was on the sign. So it was in the story. They had to take the inference from the picture.
Right, and that's a beautiful thing because oftentimes we want to teach text features and we say, what are the text features? But the teacher didn't do that. She led her class to identify that text feature in the picture, and which helped them in turn make the inference about the character in the story. So that's another just a neat teaching move that she used to help her kids gain that deeper understanding of the meaning of the text.
How is Alan feeling at this point? Tell your
Like sad and scared because he lost Fritz. Like a little nervous. Yeah.
Before I call in someone, I want you to go back and look. What are the clues that tell you that he's feeling nervous?
His heart was pounding. His heart was pounding, so it's like when your heart is hard, yeah, it's just like scared. Because when he climbed the stairs, his heart beat fast.
Yes, it said his heart was pounding. Can anybody think of another word besides scared? Wendy?
Nervously.
Ooh, where did you get the word nervous?
It says, Alan nervously climbed the great stairs.
Exactly.
Okay, so the word nerd in me comes out when I hear teachers leading kids through developing their vocabulary authentically, like she was doing here. They start talking about the nuances of the phrasing that they're hearing in the text, and they start to talk about those descriptive words that the authors are using, and thinking about other words that mean the same thing, or how did you understand what that word meant using context clues. It was very natural, and the conversation flowed through the students as they bounced off each other and gained a deeper understanding, just listening to each other talk about the phrasing and the words in the text.
And thinking about how the student fell back to a word that they knew, scared, even though scared wasn't in the text, that's what they fell back to. But then that's an example of how she pushes them towards that precise language. And then how nervously is a shade different than scared. And what were the features that were included in the text to help them determine what nervously really meant. So looking at those shades of meaning and really getting those students back to that precise language.
When Alan took the bird in his arms, it tried to give him a bite. Good old boy, said Alan sadly as he patted the bird on the head. You really haven't changed so much. What does he mean, you really haven't changed so much? Tell your partner.
Riding still and trying to get it.
Ariana, why does he say he hasn't changed so much?
Because he wanted to give him a bite again.
And it tells him he's
Really, actually, the death.
He's really the duck. With tears in his eyes, he started for home. Behind him, Alan could hear Gazazi laughing. Now, I read this again last night, and I didn't catch that the first time. Behind him, Alan could hear Gazazi laughing. Why do you think he's laughing?
Because he tricked them.
What would be the other reason he might be laughing? Logan?
He's mean.
He's mean? But why would he be laughing if he's feeling mean right now? He either tricked him, or what did he do? Quinn?
Or he could have just like kidnapped Fritz and then he could have like quickly took him home and then he could have
So Quinn, does that go with the tricking part? Either he tricked him into thinking that he turned Fritz into a duck, or what's the other explanation? Either it's a trick, or he really did it. So if he's tricking him, he's laughing because he tricked him. Or if he really did it, he's laughing because he's mean. All right, let's keep reading.
This particular text has high interest for the students. I have not had them do any sort of argumentative writing or persuasive writing yet this year, and I thought this was a good starting off point. Students feel strongly at the end one way or the other, whether Mr. Gazazi had turned the dog into a duck, and I knew they would be passionate when they went back to find their evidence in the text.
I want you to think, why did the author choose to end the story with Fritz finding Alan's hat? Tell your partner. All right, Mia.
To make it like mysterious, like if the magician really turned Fritz into a duck because the duck flew off with Fritz's.
So Mia said to make it mysterious, like how did Fritz have the hat at the end when the duck is the one who flew away with the hat? Would anybody like to add to me? Alexander?
I think Arthur wanted you to know that how Alan lost the hat. Like
What?
at the end of the story.
How did Alan lose the hat?
The duck got it.
So how did Fritz have it at the end?
We don't know.
We don't know. Well, that's our question. That's what the question is going to be that you are going to answer using evidence from the text. You are going to decide, was Fritz really turned into a duck? Talk to your neighbor for a minute. What do you think?
That question. The duck baby but the duck really big and now it's like maybe he did turn into a duck. Maybe the duck could have just dropped it, and he said it only lasted a day. Maybe he could have turned it back, but it's nighttime.
Alright, so boys and girls, this is what you're going to do. You have to pick an argument. Are you going to argue, yes, he turned into a duck? Or are you going to argue, no, he did not turn into a duck? What you're going to do now is go back to your seats, and instead of doing sticky notes today, you're just going to draw a light little star every time you find evidence to support either, yes, he was a duck, or no, he was not a duck.
I think about the flow of my class. They can't sit in one place for too long. They need to physically change their place in the classroom or their position of their body. So I'm always thinking about moving them.
I have our question written out that you need to answer. We'll start writing tomorrow. We'll just do some more thinking about what our answer will be today.
Stop it right there. So she did a really good job of connecting their writing project, kind of like Rick was talking about, and the anchor text, using the text structure and the craft that Chris Van Allsburg put into writing this story, building interest on the big question, was he a duck or not a duck? And they're going to take that to their writing and go into their opinion argumentative writing piece. She also brought in the text coding, which is something that we've started talking about in 2nd through 5th grade in PLC with writing, and really thinking about how we can lead our scholars into marking up the text and really identifying pieces and parts of the text that are important for us to remember, or pieces that we might have questions about, or pieces that we might want to include in our own writing or our own research. All of that can be built in with the anchor text and then brought right into the writing task, which she's unfolding, and it's very natural. So within 15 minutes of working with her scholars on the carpet in day 2 of, I think she said it was a 4-day lesson, she's already built interest, and they've already started close reading the text, and they're priming to go in the next day to start drafting that opinion piece. Want to add anything? We are getting close to time, so I'd like to pause here and give you just a few minutes as a table to talk about some of the evidence that you've collected on the standards that Chris is hitting as she moves through the lesson, and maybe talk about some of the notes that you've taken on her lesson. And then we'll reflect as a group.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things you can do, right? She didn't have 2 different by different authors. Right.
Everything that she could do, she did.
Yeah.
Everything, yes, I like everything that she could possibly do. I said, I think that she did do this because she talked about strategy, like how
I agree with you though, because it was connecting more than one part of the story.
Right.
And she used that too with like the text structure, and then like the word being on that side and things, and taught me where she said something.
Pull back together as a group. I hope that you all enjoy seeing an example of a teacher leading her group through a whole group reading lesson as much as I do. I always feel like I steal components of exemplar lessons from teachers who, and I do it with you all too, when I come in and I see things that are just off the charts, rock star status. I try to steal it and then share it with as many people as possible. But this is another way that we can share greatness with each other and steal ideas. How many standards were you kind of thinking through as she was delivering this lesson? Hold up your finger if you saw 2 to 3 standards, just 2 to 3. Hold up your hand if you saw evidence of more than 3 standards. I have to agree with you. If we were to watch the whole 17 minutes, she really hits all 10 reading standards in this lesson, which is pretty incredible. I don't know, I watched this video 2 or 3 times and I'd be happy to send it out to you. I think it's important for us to really continue our work with reading the text ahead of time, but then starting to seriously think through and lesson plan our questioning as we go through that text to tighten it up so that we can really be digging deeper in a meaningful way, but that is smooth, because I think that was the most, the biggest aha for me watching this teacher was how smoothly she executed this lesson. She really knew the text. She had already planned for misconceptions, vocabulary, nuances in language, and she knew what her end in mind was with the task. So as she delivered the lesson, it just went nice and quick, and with all of the management strategies put into place, the students were able, the lesson was able to flow. So I would like to continue this conversation with you all moving forward during PLC, but I appreciate you coming in this morning and going through it quickly with me. Thank you. Thank you.